Donald Trump is speaking about impeachment this morning in an interview he's given to the friendly program called Fox and Friends on Fox News. Quite an extraordinary television moment for a sitting president. And part of Trump's pushback at his former fixer, former personal lawyer, Michael Cohen. Cohen, of course, implicating Trump in an illegal campaign scheme to silence two women who say they had extramarital affairs with him. Let's listen to what he's just said.
Well, you know, I guess it says something like high crimes and all. I don't know how you can impeach somebody who's done a great job. I'll tell you what, if I ever got impeached, I think the market would crash. I think everybody would be very poor, because without this thinking, you would see numbers that you wouldn't believe in reverse.
So there you go. Donald Trump assessing if he were to be impeached. We have to talk about this. And fortunately, we have a guest to help us do so. You're looking there at Isaac Stanley Becker, who's a staff reporter for the Washington Post. A very busy newsroom these days. And Isaac's in Washington with me this morning. You heard that clip, and you heard it again as we've played it back, Isaac. Let's look at the strategy here. If I'm impeached, everyone will be poor, the economy will crash. What is he thinking? What is he trying to message with that?
Well, first of all, what the Constitution says about impeachment is that the House can impeach based on treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. I did think it was interesting that the president even broached impeachment and was willing to consider that as a hypothetical. But this is certainly the message that the White House wants to get out there, that the consequences of this would be devastating, and that the economy has performed well under this president, and that any sort of interference with that would have damaging economic repercussions. We've seen the president tweet recently about the bull market, and certainly he's emphasizing this favorable economic news.
That's what he thinks would be the economic consequences of impeachment. Let's talk about the political implications of all of this, because of the Cohen plea, many people, including some conservative commentators, have been saying it is time to consider impeachment hearings. He has been essentially named as an indicted co-conspirator, the term, of course, implicated in crimes in breaking campaign finance laws. So time to perhaps consider impeachment hearings. But lawmakers are reluctant to do so, even Democrats. Why?
You know, I think that's right, that the ground really has not shifted that much in Congress, even though we've seen growing calls from pundits and others for impeachment. And, you know, there are a couple of reasons for that. I think for the Democrats, there's a calculation that they're defending a lot of really competitive, difficult seats this November in the midterm elections, and they don't want to put their more vulnerable members in a position of having to run on impeachment of a president that their own states voted for. And with the Republicans, we're seeing, the same sort of resistance and the same sort of unwillingness to even talk about that topic. We saw some Republicans this week say that they were concerned, or that there were, elements of what happened with the legal outcomes on Tuesday with the plea deal and with the conviction that they didn't like, but really nothing beyond that, nothing speaking about direct action they were willing to take or measures in order to, check the White House and, check this administration.
So it's all about the midterms, and the stakes there so high in just a matter of weeks. You know, not only are Republican lawmakers not talking about impeachment, they're really talking very little about this week's developments at all, the extraordinary Manafort convictions and the plea from Cohen at the very same time. They won't say much. They certainly won't criticize. What do you think could get them to react on this, if anything?
Right. It's difficult to say. I think that Tuesday was such an interesting day. And one of the things that we saw was, in addition to the legal news, there was news out of Iowa, where a young woman, a college student, had disappeared. And authorities said they discovered that the killer was an undocumented immigrant from Mexico. And I would say that this is really in the news that the White House and that Trump's loyal supporters in Congress and elsewhere want to be talking about. If they can make the midterms and the news about the murder of this woman and about the issue of undocumented immigration, then they see themselves as ahead. If the Democrats can make it about corruption and about other aspects of the legal difficulty that the president is in, then they come out ahead in this respect.
Again, all about November and those midterm results. Let me ask you as well about Paul Manafort. In the interview that we're hearing this morning on Fox and Friends, he talks about Manafort and talks about the whole notion of a pardon for Manafort. We certainly heard him praise him yesterday as a brave man, lots of sympathy for him and the current situation in which he finds himself, convicted. But he didn't answer the question directly of whether he would pardon Manafort. What do you think is the likelihood of that?
That's right. He didn't address that question head on. He certainly had a lot of praise for Manafort and praise for him specifically for not cooperating, for staying strong and facing trial. But he certainly was not willing to make a commitment to pardon. And I think that perhaps that's a calculation about how inflammatory that would be, and possibly giving more ground to his critics here.
So the consequences of that. So interesting. Another week of extraordinary times in Washington, and I thank you for helping us understand them better this morning. Isaac Stanley Becker, who works there for the Washington Post. Thanks.